Arlington, a peaceful town in the heart of Connecticut, where the streets are tree-lined, where neighbors are familiar enough to exchange Christmas greetings, where cozy family parties are the most sacred thing of the year. And it was there, at 7 Birchview Drive, that a nightmare happened right before Christmas 2015. A wife was murdered with a gun in her own home. A husband was tied to a chair, stabbed, burned with a blowtorch. And a story so thrilling that even the police could not believe it. Connie Margata Debate, 39 years old, is a mother, wife, daughter that everyone loves. She has 2 sons, Richard Jr., RJ, 9 years old, and Connor, 6 years old. As the youngest in a large family, Connie loves the hustle and bustle. She is famous for her crowded parties, especially on holidays, Halloween, Christmas, New Year. For Connie, every occasion is a reason to love each other more. A close friend once said, "Connie is the first person you call when you need advice, whether it's the middle of the night or the early morning." She never leaves anyone alone. While in college, Connie met Richard Debate, a somewhat dry, but funny and lovable computer technician. They fell in love and got married on July 4, 2003. A seemingly incompatible couple. But together for more than a decade, on December 23, 2015, the Debate family home was decorated for Christmas. Presents were wrapped, lights were hung. Connie took the 2 children to school, and Richard got ready for work. Connie planned to go to a cycling class at the YMCA. Everything was normal. Until the house's alarm system suddenly activated at 10:11 a.m., the 911 call was brief and panicked. When the police arrived, the scene was like a horror movie: blood, smoke, sirens. The residents were told to stay inside. And then the truth came out. The police found Richard, the husband, tied to a chair, one leg and one arm still free, his neck strangled with zip ties, both legs stabbed multiple times, and his body covered in severe burns. Down in the basement, they found Connie, dead, shot twice with the family's own gun, once in the head, once in the stomach. The other gun was also found, with no fingerprints. Richard was rushed to the emergency room. And then came the series of stories he told, too bizarre to believe, but too detailed to ignore. At the hospital, Richard said he had left his laptop at work. He turned around and headed home to find a tall man in camouflage, wearing a mask, similar to Vin Diesel, rummaging through jewelry. The man demanded money, credit cards, and pins. Then Richard heard Connie coming back, so he yelled for her to run. But instead of running away, Connie ran to the basement, where they kept their guns for protection. Shortly after, Richard heard 2 gunshots, then the stranger overpowered him, tied him to a chair, stabbed him in the leg, and burned his lower body with a blowtorch. In a panic, Richard grabbed the blowtorch and burned the attacker in the face, causing him to run away. It was like an action movie. From the start, the police sensed something was wrong. The neighbors saw no one suspicious, there was no sign of forced entry, and Richard's stolen wallet was still in the yard, complete with everything. The gun had no fingerprints. Not a drop of blood other than Connie and Richard's. Police dogs were brought in. One insisted on getting into the ambulance, where Richard was lying. 2 others couldn't smell anyone other than the homeowner, and when investigators questioned friends and family, they discovered that Richard had been very strange after his wife's death. Just a few days after the funeral, Richard appeared in bars, invited friends to his house for parties, posted on Facebook to be strong for the kids. But those closest to him, Connie's best friend, began to feel a chill. There was not a scratch on him. No bruises, no cuts. It was strange. At the funeral, Richard left early in an odd way. When two close friends asked, "Do you miss my wife?" Richard just looked at them as if he didn't know who they were. The community began to gossip. But no one could have imagined, the truth was much more horrifying than those whispers. Connie always wore a Fitbit, a device that measures steps and heart rate. On the morning of December 23, Richard told the police that his wife had been shot to death at around 9:05 a.m., just minutes after he returned home and found a stranger in the bedroom. But the Fitbit data said something different. Connie was still alive and moving until 10:05 a.m., nearly an hour after Richard had said he was driving to work, and that wasn't all. During the time Richard said he was driving to work, the police found that he was using Facebook, sending emails, and logging into his home computer. All of this was recorded by IP address and system logs. When you compare it all, the time the home alarm was triggered, the camera data, Facebook, email, and Fitbit, a completely different picture emerges. And it exposes the whole lie. Richard said he had been tied to a chair, stabbed, burned with a blowtorch, but investigators found the wounds were superficial, non-fatal, and entirely self-inflicted. The wallet Richard said had been stolen was found in the yard, near the door, undamaged. The gun that killed Connie? No fingerprints, not even hers. No signs of a struggle. No screams heard by neighbors, even on a quiet, weekday morning, and police dogs sensitive to human scent didn't detect any trace of a third person leaving the scene. As they probed deeper into Richard's personal life, they discovered he was having an affair with a woman named Sarah, a former classmate. Sarah was pregnant with Richard's child. Richard had even taken her on a vacation trip to Vermont just weeks before Connie was killed. When questioned, Richard initially said that Connie knew and approved of it. Then he changed his story and said they were just helping a friend have a baby. Then he said that Sarah was the surrogate mother for both of them. 3 stories. 3 versions. And none of them were the same. The investigator knew for sure this was no casual affair. 2 days before she was killed, Connie sent Richard a hurtful text message. "You lied to me again. I'm cleaning up the mess you made. Have a great holiday." A year earlier, Connie had written in her phone notes, "I want a divorce. I'm tired of pretending. Tired of covering for you. Tired of living with an unloving, dishonest, irresponsible spendthrift." Connie felt completely disconnected from the husband everyone thought was ideal. In Richard's search history, the police found phrases such as easy to find odorless poison, undetectable poison, fastest way to kill yourself. Even the day before the murder, Richard texted Sarah, "I'm leaving her," and the next day, "Love you. See you tomorrow." That was the day Connie was killed. It took more than a year for police to have enough evidence to arrest Richard DeBate. In April 2017, while driving into a residential area, he was stopped and handcuffed on the street. Charged with murder, tampering with evidence, making false statements to police, he had a lawyer from the start. But deep in the hearts of the Ellington community, and especially in the hearts of Connie's family, they had known for a long time, Richard had murdered his wife, a woman who was preparing to celebrate Christmas with her 2 young children, a father raising grandchildren instead of his daughter. Connie's father, despite being ill for many years, told everyone that he had only one wish before he left this world, and that was to see justice for his daughter. But he didn't make it. He died in 2019. Before the trial began, Connie's younger sister, Leslie, adopted her 2 sons. In the children's eyes, their father still said that a stranger had broken into the house. But as they grew older, they began to understand. And the fear of that stranger still made them worry every night. More than 6 years after that fateful day, the morning of December 23, 2015, the murder at 7 Birchview Drive was officially brought to trial. In April 2022, the trial began in Connecticut, attracting the attention of not only the local people but also the media across the United States. The reason is simple: this was a case that was both brutal and sophisticated. And a Fitbit, a fitness device, became the key to solving the case. In court, Richard DeBate testified that he loved both Connie and Sarah, and that he was caught between the two women. But the truth was that he had not only cheated, but also lied to them both, fabricating different stories to cover up his affair. The prosecutors wasted no time. They presented a detailed series of technical evidence. Fitbit data showed that Connie was still alive as late as 10:05 a.m., contrary to Richard's testimony. Emails and Facebook messages sent from the home computer, while Richard claimed to be driving. The security alarm was turned off with Richard's caring, then turned back on, clearly to create a fake scene. There was no sign of forced entry, no strangers in the neighborhood, nothing was taken. The conclusion? There was no intruder. It was all staged. Particularly shocking was the testimony of one of Connie's sisters. She recounted that immediately after hearing the news of Connie's death, the family gathered at their parents' house to console each other. And the husband, Richard, came too. He didn't cry. He didn't shake. He didn't look confused. The first thing Richard said was, "I didn't do it. Someone broke in. I need a lawyer." Then he recounted the whole attack story with a stony expression, as if he were reciting a script rather than describing his wife's death. And after he finished, he mentioned the missed trip to the Great Wolf Lodge and asked who could go with him and the kids instead of Connie, a seemingly innocuous question, but it left the living room speechless. The trial lasted nearly 5 weeks, with more than 130 witnesses and more than 600 pieces of evidence presented. Richard's defense team argued that the police were biased and focused on him from the start, ignoring other lines of investigation, but the prosecutor argued strongly, "We investigated everyone, from the contractor being sued to friends, relatives, neighbors. No one had motive, opportunity, or evidence of involvement." In the end, the jury took less than 3 hours to reach a verdict: guilty. Guilty to murder. Guilty to fabricating evidence. Guilty to lying to the police, 65 years in prison, and a final denial. In August 2022, Richard DeBate was sentenced to 65 years in prison. At the sentencing hearing, the man once considered an ideal husband and father stood before the court, maintaining his stance: "I am innocent. I did not kill my wife. I will continue to fight to clear my name." Richard's parents also did not believe that their son could commit such a crime. But the judge did not hesitate. This was a cruel, calculated, incomprehensible crime. He murdered a good woman, a devoted mother, because he wanted to live a different life. The two boys, RJ and Connor, now live with their aunt, Leslie. She is Connie's sister, and since the tragedy, she has adopted them. As a way to keep her spirit alive, Leslie once shared, "The children no longer believe that home is a safe place. They always think someone will break in. But the most painful thing is that the person who killed their mother was their own father." Every year at Christmas, Leslie still lets the children write letters to their mother. They tell about school, about games, about wishes. But at the end, it always says, "We miss you so much. I wish you were still alive." Connie Margata DeBate, 39, is not only a wonderful mother, but also the heart of the community. She lives life to the fullest, loves fiercely, and always makes others feel loved. Connie's mother said that the last time she spoke to her daughter was on the phone, the morning of December 23rd. Connie picked up the phone and said right away, "Mom, you are my best friend." Those were her last words. And they will be with her for the rest of her life. Did Richard really deserve a 65-year prison sentence? Can crimes be hidden forever without technological evidence like Fitbit? And the pain of children, will it ever heal? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you find this video worthy, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on the most authentic, touching, and unforgettable cases. See you in the next video.